and welcome to the latest episode of Off the Fence, brought to you in association with BOYLESPORTS, of course. This is your weekly go-to jump show where myself, Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan get to basically chew the fat on all things national hunt racing. And of course, this week there is, although it may seem like quite a quiet time in the national hunt racing world, it's actually, we've got loads to talk about. It's another jam-packed show coming your way. We also have the announcement of a competition winner. Last week, the competition was a £20 or Euro free bet was up for grabs with BOYLESPORTS, and we asked for your comments in the YouTube comment box, and we asked for your best anti-post bet for the Cheltenham Festival. I'm going to reveal all very shortly in terms of who has won that free bet. But for now, I'd like to say thank you for all of your contributions, because it's great to have so many of you getting involved. We love to hear from you. We read the comments. And so, yeah, made for fascinating reading last week. So thank you very much for everyone who did get involved in the comments section. More to follow, because we've got another competition coming for you this week, and I will announce the winner from last week. But for now, let's say hello to Barry Geraghty and Tony Keenan. Barry, I will start with you. How are you?
Very good, Vanessa. Good weekend. Was at Naas on Friday to watch the Lawlers, which was, I suppose, interesting, you could say, and Fairyhouse Saturday. But I was keeping a good eye on what was happening in England as well. There was a good bit going on.
And you, well, both of you, yourself and Tony, have had a good week in terms of sort of tracker and eye-catcher horses. You put up Spillane's Tower and Personal Ambition, Barry. Both of them have won recently. We will be talking about one of them very shortly. And Tony, you've had a good few tracker and eye-catcher winners, including Lissen to the Lady, who's one of your eye-catchers from last week, won this week. And again, in our YouTube comment section, somebody thanked you for that winning tip, and I know it was well backed. So it's going great guns, Tony.
Yeah, that was a nice one last week. All right, we'll try and find another one hopefully for this week. Yeah, all quiet here, just a bit cold and it looks like it's going to get colder. Hopefully we will get a bit of racing on this weekend, but I'd say now it might be a bit iffy.
I know, I'm a touch worried, but of course I'm blessed because I've got a couple of Newcastle all-weather shifts this week, so I'll be fine. And if we're short on jump racing, then just tune in to those twilight meetings at Newcastle. First of all, before we go any further, we also have a load of price boosts coming up again from BOYLESPORTS in this show, so stay tuned for those. But just a little bit of a news angle. Barry, the news came out, of course, today. We record this on a Monday evening, that Constitution Hill has had a dirty scope. I think they've scoped him twice, last week and again this week. Hasn't improved, so he will miss Cheltenham at the end of this month, and he will head to the Cheltenham Festival without a run since Kempton. Obviously disappointing for fans, and lots of people sort of bemoaning the fact that we're not going to see too much from this season, but mainly disappointing to hear that he's not completely A1.
Yeah, well, it's disappointing he isn't gone, but I wouldn't be panicked about it as such. I'd imagine it's something like a low-grade lung infection. I wasn't speaking to anyone as of yet, so I couldn't give any more detail than that, but from reading the quotes, there doesn't seem to be any major alarm, so a little bit of a setback, but a real pity. I was looking forward to seeing him myself on Trials Day. I haven't seen him in the flesh since Cheltenham, I think. So no, unfortunately that'll have to wait again until March. But nothing major, but just a pity for everyone that he won't be at Cheltenham next weekend, after the weekend after next.
Well, you know the saying, Barry Geraghty, good things come to those who wait, so just hold out that little while longer. Let's start, Tony, with what happened where section, as we tend to do, a look back at the last 7 days. And as I said at the top of the show, some really nice performances. We had one Grade 1 to dissect. That was the Lawlers of Naas Novices Hurdle, rescheduled, of course, for the Friday. Lots of chat around Firefox, Il Atlantique, and it was neither of those who came out on top, with Readin Tommy Wrong winning at a big price for the Willie Mullins Yard. Much, I don't know, I was going to say a bit disappointing in terms of who ended up winning it. It just sort of keeps feeling like these novice hurdlers over in Ireland really haven't sort of sorted out their pecking order yet. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say the novice hurdle scene is very chaotic, and any kind of big performance is going to probably affect the markets in a lot of ways. And sometimes those kind of chaotic markets are very good for punters. You can get on at good prices. Sometimes you just do your brains. But I would generally prefer the chaos than necessarily looking at an even money shot for one of these races at this time. I think maybe more confused and would suit my betting style anyway. As the Lawlers race, I thought tactically it was a very interesting race. Because it didn't go the way I'd say Mullins' crowd wanted it to go. Shapwood and Slade set out in front, but he kind of planted himself at the first two hurdles and he was soon last, which meant that Ile Atlantique had to make the run, and I would say they clearly wanted to give him a bit of a lead, stepping up the 2 miles, but actually he kind of cut out the run. He was a bit keen, it was nothing major, he didn't overdo it in front. I think pace-wise they went a largely even pace. His hurdling was a little bit disappointing. I think he made 2 or 3 mistakes on the way around. But Willie Mullins seemed to imply after the race that kind of Daryl Jacob won the race via the kind of ride that he gave him, that he kind of sat out of the pace. I'm not so sure. I wouldn't underestimate this winner. Like Ile Atlantique maybe would have potential back at 2 miles, forcing the pace. But the reality with Ile Atlantique is like he's had 6 runs and he's only won twice, whereas this winner has had 4 starts from Mullins and he's won the 4 of them. I really like that about him, and he's done a couple of things here that kind of impressed me. The first thing was that he basically come from, he was second last, I won't say last in this because Shapwood and Slade had finished out the back there after his jumping hours, but he's basically come from the rear of the field, which is very hard to do in the Naas kind of hurdle track. Often kind of favours the pace. I know it's a stiff track, but straight is actually relatively short, and he's jumped poorly as well. But what I loved is anytime Daryl Jacob gave him the semblance of a squeeze in kind of the second half of the race, he just popped straight back on the bridle. I'm really just impressed with the way he kind of did that. He reminded me of Quilixios the day he won the Spring Juvenile in Leopardstown. Like, he just, as soon as Jock gave him the message it's time to go, he was right there from. They pulled a fair way clear of Lecky Watson, I think 7 or 8 lengths. He's kind of a solid yardstick, ran well in the champion bumper last time, had run well in the Navan race before that. I just wouldn't underestimate this horse. Like, just think now, for only a second start, he's come up to a very good level over hurdles. Like Ile Atlantique had run over hurdles in France as well, so he has kind of experience going back. Maybe his summer form has been held against him. Patrick Mullins did say after he won his Tipperary bumper that he was just a winter horse who didn't kind of get out in time. So yeah, I actually quite keen on this horse to win something decent. I'm not necessarily advocating betting him for Cheltenham because I don't know which race he's going to go for. I presume it's going to be either the Ballymore or the Albert Bartlett. Maybe they'll just stick to him at this trip, but I really like the performance and the fact that he just keeps winning. And there was a few quid knocking about from, like, he did kind of half in price from whatever he was 33s into the SPA 16. So definitely wouldn't underestimate the winner. Mullins has had a rare price winner of this back in, I'm not sure when it was, but McKinley was the name of the horse. He beat an odds-on shot. There were 2 Geogheganstown horses. Like, neither of them ever amounted to much, but I don't think this horse is going to fall into that category.
Okay, so more positive on the winner then than many kind of dismissed him as afterwards, maybe just because of his price and maybe the sort of disappointments in behind him. He has been price boosted. He's the first of our price boosts with BOYLESPORTS, and that is for the Ballymore. Readin Tommy Wrong was 7-1. He's been price boosted 2 points to 9-1. So if any of you are out there are as keen on him as Tony is, then do get involved. Do it responsibly, of course. Read the T's and C's. That will be for a limited time only, as the price boosts tend to be. But he is out to 9-1 for you. Barry, are you as keen on the winner as Tony is, I suppose, is the follow-up question?
I think, Vanessa, we could be looking back in time and say this lad is really well named, that everyone's been reading Tommy wrong. He's 4 from 4 upper jumps. He won his previous start beating Lissen Gar Fortune in Cork, beat him a short head, jumped badly left, gave away a good bit of ground. At the time, a lot of Willies were needing their first run. But through the race in this, he never looked too comfortable. He was only half travelling behind the bridle. Jumping was only adequate. But then from 4 out, he started to jump. He missed the 4 last, he jumped the 3rd last really well. And he came on the bridle. He started travelling. Now, Daryl Jacob gave him a beautiful ride, crept his way around the inner and produced him. But for me, it's a style of racing. I'm not saying he's another Bobsworth, or maybe he will be in time. But for me, he has that style. He's a horse, he's nothing flash about him. He warms to the job. But he was actually picking up. He wasn't just staying on off a strong pace, passing tired horses. both himself and Illa and Antique were probably about 3 lengths up, jumping the last 4 or 5 lengths up with 100 yards to go, and they're 7.5 lengths clear of the third at the line. So they were pulling away. But he just kept finding. So I'd say he's just one of those horses, races behind the bridle, and then, the longer you wait, the longer you just sit on him, the more he finds that on. So at the minute, with the possible strength in the Ballymore, if you like, with Ballyburn in there and others, maybe he will be a horse to go up and trip for Delbert Bartlett, because he looks like he would stay all day. But no, I was really impressed with him. Obviously a question mark over Firefox, he disappointed, but apart from that, the race would have stood up pretty well.
Yeah, the Firefox disappointment, Tony, that does definitely bring in a question mark. There was lots of chat about him beforehand, and he hasn't delivered for whatever reason. I'm unsure of them at this stage, but the Gordon form in general right now, how are you reading some of his stable stars?
Well, Firefox is the perfect trip through the race. I'd say he did everything right. He settled well, he jumped well, and then he got the 2 out and he didn't kind of find much. Now, I kind of raised the possibility last week that maybe he wouldn't stay. Visually, maybe it looked like that, but looking on his pedigree at the same time, you'd be saying he would stay. There's plenty of stamina there. Just kind of a flat run. Gordon Elliott's stable form, it hadn't registered with me that maybe they weren't going wonderful, but he did actually make a comment after Romeo Coolio won at Fairyhouse on Saturday that all his previous horses on the card had disappointed. I just thought it was maybe an unusual comment to make, like there wasn't anything really kind of fancied out of the way and things like that. And he also did have one fancied horse that should come to her, because she might be relevant to this horse called Magic Dawn, the mare's maiden hurdle. I think she gave a cough and scope badly afterwards, so I don't know if there is an issue there with that. But Gordon Elliott now, to be honest, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's a hell of a lot of horses now have disappointed. Kind of not, maybe there are excuses, but kind of the bubble has burst them, having plenty of winners and stuff like that. But you're looking at Firefox there coming up the ranks, you'd say, God, he'll be very competitive in a Grade 1. Jerry Colomb, you can make pieces of excuses at Christmas that he could have finished a bit closer to Gallop in the jumps. Maybe he's in the wrong part of the track, but 22 lengths worth of a difference, I don't know. Mighty Bandit again at Christmas, disappointing again, maybe has excuses, but just these horses that look like they're going to be really good ones the first time out, look like they're going to be stars. To me, they just haven't really delivered when they've gone up in grade, and look, maybe they will deliver as time goes on. There's others as well, like Mike Trump-Card beating at odds on his maiden hurdle on Fairyhouse on New Year's Day when he had Fitness Edge. American Mike kind of disappointed in Limerick, so just building up a little bit of profile. I'd say they're disappointed now with a lot of those horses that they haven't been able to bridge the gap up to those graded races where they've been running lately.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when you rattle off those sort of names, every name you say, it's like, oh yeah, he hasn't quite lived up to what we thought, the billing, so to speak. One horse that is living up to the billing, Barry Geraghty, is Mystical Power, who went and won the Moscow Flyer at Punchestown over the 2 miles on Sunday, and has shot to the top of the Supreme betting as a result. Was 4-1, is our next price boost though with BOYLESPORTS, been pushed out to 5-1, so just a point bigger with the price boost for Mystical Power. Of course, it has this very sort of famous and attractive pedigree page, and is now delivering it on the track and has stepped up in grade here off the back of the break, Barry. Might not have been the strongest renewal of the Moscow Flyer, but he can only go and win it how he did. Were you overly impressed with him, or are you surprised he's up at the top of the Supreme betting, actually?
No, you'd have to be impressed with him, and for me, he seems to have improved with each run. He was workmanlike to win his bumper, put in a good performance in his maiden hurdle in Galway, and this was a good performance too. Now, he beat Jagaro, who was beaten 6 lengths previously by Flamborough. Flamborough's right at 128, so the bare form wouldn't be strong enough. Now, he's gone to the head of the market. You'd have to question that with the quality of what he's bet, but he can only beat what's put in front of him, and he did beat him comfortably, so it was a good performance. He's obviously got a standout pedigree, so he's all the potential in the world, but he has to lower a scalp for me before you could recognise him at that level. But then what's there at the minute, the strength and depth in the Supreme market isn't massive when you've Geraghty the Repinet in England with probably a similar profile, has beaten horses in Newbury at a lower level but has done it impressively, so they're there on reputation, if you like, and maybe that will come to fruition. But there still would be question marks there, but a good performance nonetheless. But you'd have to see him lower some really, big names before you could get as excited as the market maybe.
Yeah, but I suppose, like you say, it's sort of the reputation of those two horses has them at the top of the betting, and it's because there's not much substance of form in that category in behind. And as we've been discussing plenty, it's just quite a muddled novice hurdle year in general. But specifically maybe in the Supreme. Anyway, I'm sure we'll be talking plenty more about Mystical Power in the next few weeks. Barry, let's move on, because on the same card with the Sky Bet Novices Chase over the 2 miles and nearly 4 furlongs, and this is where Spillane's Tower won for you, one of your tracker horses from back in November, and brought down a horse that you're a fan of and we've spoken plenty of in the process in beating Blood Destiny, who of course was a very short price favourite for this race for the Willie Mullins team, came there cantering and delivered very little. I'm terribly disappointed in Blood Destiny. I'm pleased for you with Spillane's Tower, but I'm disappointed in the second.
Yeah, you would have to be disappointed. Blood Destiny jumping the second last, it looked as if he was home and hosed and he seemed to find nothing. But all credit to Spillane's Tower, he picked up and ran on well and galloped all the way to the line. He was ridden from towards the rear and he was ridden to give him every chance. He probably struggled to lay up at the pace. Blood Destiny had gone a good gallop, I'd imagine, up front. So it was competitive. He's a horse who'll probably benefit from stepping up and trip. But I think Blood Destiny, he was the likely winner until he cut out for what reason. But all credit to the winner. He beat the filly that won in Cork previously. And obviously imagine he beat those well on the day. So it was a good performance and it'd be interesting to see what he can do. But for me, maybe stepping up and trip might bring on that little bit more improvement again.
Tony, there's a lot of sort of focus on the second disappointing, as my original question was sort of based around that. But am I ignoring the fact that the winner may well just be a very smart horse for the Mangan team?
I think he is a smart horse. I'd say Blood Destiny, the possibility that he may be a 2-miler is still there. He kind of jumps a little bit like a 2-miler. That said, he's getting the £4 allowance there as a 5-year-old. That's going to run out fairly shortly. I like the winner. I've liked the winner kind of all along. I think Barry should be patting himself in the back here. I think he's after finding the right good horse now. That he would have looked like only a kind of a glorified handicapper on his early runs. He's kind of got an unusual profile, I suppose, in that he had two kind of, we'll call them educational runs over fences, but that's kind of built up the experience. He's now in his 4th run. And to me, he improved markedly for going up and trip, and he might improve again for going up and trip. It'll be interesting, does he get a Cheltenham entry for the novice chases? I think they're either this week or next week. Although I was just looking, Jimmy Mangan hasn't had a runner in Cheltenham since the 2014 Fox Hunters with Oscar Delta. So I just wonder, might he be the type of horse that might keep it home for something like the Grade 1 at Fairyhouse at Easter? But no, I wouldn't underestimate this horse. He had a very light campaign over hurdles. He's going the right way, improving run by run, and it looks well up the graded class. And Fairyhouse at Easter might set up nicely for him, because Easter's very early this year. The horses that we may be coming back from Cheltenham would really be backing up quick. So he could be in a lovely spot if they were to keep him for that race.
Okay. And as for the second, in your comments there in regards to Blood Destiny maybe even dropping down in trip because of the way in which he jumps, that leads us on to talking about kind of Willie Mullins' search for an Arkle horse this season. We've had the likes of Mr. Policeman beaten, obviously Blood Destiny beaten, you've got Hunter's Yarn in there, a few other names too. What is Willie Mullins' Arkle horse for this season in your eyes, Tony?
I wouldn't think he has one. I'd say the horse is going to be third in the champion hurdle. Maybe Imperial Pass. Imperial Pass was the horse he maybe wanted to go chasing, and but for whatever reason they decided to stay over hurdles with him. It looked like Facile Vega was going to be a horse that was going to be mixing it in that grade before he disappointed. It's kind of funny now that Spillane's Tower might turn out to be the best chaser out of that race in Navan with himself and in the pocket. Mr. Policeman just jumped very slowly, I thought, in Naas, like up and trip may well suit, but Willie Mullins was talking about the blinkers afterwards, so that wouldn't be a positive sign with that man. Hunter's Yarn was good at Fairyhouse on Saturday. Like his initial run, he made one bad mistake. In this case, he stood up. Now, you might be questioning his jumping, but El Fabiolo wouldn't be the most perfect jumper. so if he could put it all together on a day, he might be able to be competitive in Grade 1s. Though we did have a ceiling in hurdles when he went into the county hurdle last year. Like he was no better than kind of the low to mid 140s. What else do we mention there? Blood Destiny, like maybe down in triple suit. I actually like the performance of the horse that won the Dan Moore on Saturday. I don't think he's going to be an Arkle horse, Uncle Phil, because he's inclined to shift a bit to his right, but I thought his jumping was really excellent now, and that can sometimes be used as stick to beat the Mullins kind of novice chasers and that, but his jumping now in the Dan Moore was really, really good. I thought he won that race with a bit in hand, so maybe they could think about coming back to Punchestown with him maybe for the 2 mile Grade 1, but not just convinced about him going left-handed, with that tendency just the other way.
Okay, plenty of question marks above a few of those horses' names, that's for sure. Barry, one horse that's bounced back over to England, because we did have some pretty nice racing in England at sort of Kempton and Warwick specifically on Saturday. And of course, Kempton saw the Sylvian Arco Conti Chase. It's a Grade 2 at Kempton. Banbridge came over for it and beat Pic Dory in a finish. Lots of focus on that last fence. He gets a good stride. The second sort of misses slightly. But I don't think we should be underestimating the winner here, Banbridge. When he gets his ground, his trip, and he's fresh and well, he's a really proper horse, isn't he?
Oh, he definitely is, yeah. He ran at the Dublin Racing Festival behind El Fabiolo and ran a solid race, but just didn't have the pace. He was a winner earlier in the season around Cheltenham as well, so he handles the place well. But no, he's a proper stayer on nice ground. It was a good performance. I thought Harry Cabden dictated a nice pace on Pic Dory, had everything off the bridle turned in, but Banbridge just outstayed him in the finish. Edwardstone ran very keen and got keener as the race progressed, and for me, even watching him, he jumped so quick. He was giving Tom Cannon no chance to get him settled, because he'd make a length at his fences and then he'd land charging at the back of it, so he was of no help to him at that trip. But all credit to the winner, brilliant performance. Didn't look likely early in the strip, but just stayed and jumped, and he's a brilliant jumper. But for me, he'd be a £10 better horse around Cheltenham than he would be around a track like Kempton. I thought Kempton would be too sharp for him, especially in his first run back. But no, he proved me wrong, and it was a really good performance. And for me, he'd be the type for the Ryanair, especially on the new course. Emphasis on stamina. You could just ride him behind the pace. He'd stay all day, and he jumps for sport. So brilliant ride by JJ7 as well.
Oh, very positive on Banbridge then, and for the Ryanair too, and he's our next price boost, guys. Again, these price boosts are for a limited time only, and please get involved responsibly. But Banbridge is now 6-1, has been boosted out a point from 5-1. His original price with BOYLESPORTS, he's now 6-1. Tony, Barry's almost waxing lyrical there, I want to say. Were you as keen on this performance as Barry is? I mean, I was very positive about it too, but I'm delighted to hear Barry back up what I thought as well.
Yeah, all what Barry said there, like it's very much a very suitable race for Pic Dory, kind of a speed track, nice ground, 2.5 miles. He jumped a little bit better than Banbridge bar last, but Banbridge has been able to hang in with him and showed a very good attitude to sort of battle and win. Barry says if he's £10 better at Cheltenham, he'll be going very close in the Ryanair, which is an open looking Ryanair, like Allaho just doesn't look to be the same horse. If the Ryanair is shaping up to be a very interesting race, if not perhaps one where there's a 175 horse in it. Banbridge is the kind of horse I think Joseph O'Brien kind of excels with. They tend to place them well. Up to now he hasn't looked tip top class, and they've had other horses like this over the years on the flat, but they place them to good effect, get them into races where they can win. He's won a hell of a lot of races. He's going into Cheltenham now with a nice prep. It's kind of hard to see him out of the frame in the Ryanair unless it turns up soft, and kind of he just does things right, has the good attitude. Is kind of on the up, second season chaser, and yeah, I can't find any holes in him anyway.
Yeah, I'm all for him too. I just think, as you say, Tony, he just ticks so many boxes. He's got such a likeable way about him, and he is that price boost out to 6-1 for the Ryanair. So we look forward to seeing him. But of course, everyone will be hopeful. Well, his team will be hopeful that the rain stays away, because he needs that good ground. Barry. Same card, Lanzarote Hurdle, very competitive, goes the way of JJ Riley for the Skelton Yard. Skelton's flying at this time of year. Was it across the card 6-timer on Saturday?
Yeah, the 6 winners on Saturday, great day. But no, this is a good performance. Had been running over fences, was 18 lengths, I think, or so behind Fugitive and Cheltenham on his previous start. But now 3 from 6 over hurdles. But you thought at the second last, this one had only jumped in, cantered into the straight, and it was a good solid performance. He beat Nemian Lyon, who was second, and then Poitois, who was third. So he beat 2 of the well fancied runners, but beat them well. So it has the potential, when not overly exposed over hurdles, having went chasing a couple of seasons ago. So it has potential to go again. Maybe could be well entitled to line up in something like the Coral or the Martin Pipe.
Oh yeah, well that'd be interesting. The way in which he travels into the races will help him round there in a big field as well. Let's keep on the skeleton theme and bounce up to Warwick, which saw Grey Dawning get his head back in front after that clanger of a mistake when we last saw him at Cheltenham. He did well to finish second there. He's back in the winner's enclosure, winning the Hampton Novices Chase, Barry. First of all, the winner himself, he's a bit leery in front, isn't he, when with those mistakes? He's not a safe watch anyway in those closing stages.
Yeah, in the closing stages, I jumped reasonably well through the race. They went a good gallop. The ground was soft. Applesway was trying to make it as much of a test as possible. For me, she probably won softer ground and or further. So I flagged her up in one of the earlier shows as being one potentially for the National Hunt Chase. I think she's crying out for that kind of trip. And I would have felt that Patrick Wadge had to overforce her and overuse her, because she needed further. And I know there was question marks about it, how he rode her out of fences. She kept asking questions, but she was out of her comfort zone. He was trying to go forward. It's very easy for the lads to sit on the fence, if you like, and pigeonhole his riding. But when you're on a horse like that, there's very little else you can do, and you try and keep the revs up. If you sit quiet and let them pop, they lose momentum, and people are saying, what are you doing? You want to keep the revs up. So I don't think she lost much in defeat. I thought the winner was good, with the exception of the last 2 fences. Very untidy at those. I thought Broadway Boy, this was his 5th run over 3 miles so far this season, and he's only rising 6. So I think he was paying the price for a busy campaign. He was in the back foot for most of the way. So I'd forgive him that, but you wouldn't want to see him back for a while. He'd want a nice break, I feel. As I say, Applesway up and trip. Having said that, Grey Dawning, would I see him trouble some of the fancied ones in the Brown Advisory? I'm not so sure. There's plenty of depth in there at the minute, so I'm not sure he'll trouble them, but one to chase them home maybe.
Yeah, very interesting reflections there on both the ride the second got, for sure. That was a discussion point. The winner, and I'm with you, I love Broadway Boy, but I think he's probably just in need of a bit of a quieter time, maybe over the coming weeks. Last mention, Barry, to the Classic Chase, which of course saw My Silver Lining. Well, 2 mares battle it out in the finish, which is always great to see from a National Hunt sort of breeding point of view. But also for jockey James Best to win on this My Silver Lining. Great result for a race that is... There's always plenty of strength and depth there, and I just thought this was a really good winner all ways round.
Yeah, exactly, and you saw what it meant to James Best after the line. He's a really dedicated lad. He's fit as a flea. He works hard, real grafter, and deserves success. He said it was the biggest day of his career. That was maybe helped, the fact was for his mother-in-law as well, so that was keeping a few people sweet. But no, good performance, solid. Galala too ran on well to be second. Like that, she would appreciate maybe slower ground as well. But no, it was a good performance. Whether you can build on that, or maybe that's our Gold Cup, but how bad there was a good pot at stake.
Yeah, it was it was a good result and well celebrated as well. As you say, keeping the mother-in-law happy, very important. Right, time to reveal our competition winner from last week before we get stuck into our competition for this week. So obviously there was a £20 or euro free bet up for grabs with BOYLESPORTS. We asked for your best anti-post picks for the Cheltenham Festival, because that's what we were discussing last week. Loads of you got involved. Just looking down here at the YouTube comments right now, thanks so much, as I said earlier, for all your comments. The likes of Keith Bailey said that his best anti-post bet was Jericho de Reponnet in the Supreme. Michael O'Connor has got involved with Mystical Power, small each way bet in the Ballymore. Be interesting to see if he was stepped up in trip. Brian Walker saying that his best anti-post bet so far was Marine Nationale at a big enough price in the Arkle, placed just after he dotted up in the Supreme. That looks pretty tasty. But the winner, drum roll, Marjo Polo, to 302. Marjo Polo 302. You put up Manila Indo, and I believe you have already been contacted by the At the Races social team. So congratulations, you'll get your £20 free bet. And that leads us nicely on to talking about what we have coming up at the weekend on the racing front, because that is where our next competition lies, because there's another £20 free bet up for grabs with Ball Sports in and around discussions for the Clarence House Chase. And that's where we're going first with our look ahead, guys. We have the Winter Millions as well, and we have big meeting up at Haydock. Lots of focus at Ascot with the Clarence House Chase, Barry, and we're going to see El Fabiolo clash with Jonbon, hopefully, fingers crossed, weather permitting, and Willie Mullins and Nicky Henderson permitting as well. This time of year, round a track like Ascot, who's going to come out on top?
Well, El Fabiolo had Jonbon 6.5 lengths behind him, I think it was, in the Arkle. And I don't think there was any excuse for Jonbon on the day. He ran a solid race. El Fabiolo was very untidy at the last that day. For me, that's the thing he would have to overcome, is his jumping. Wasn't just splendid in Cork at a few as well. So he does have a tendency to miss one. You have a downhill run away from the stands in Ascot. If you don't have your thinking cap on, you could pay the price. So I think that would be his biggest concern. But on that Arkle form, it's very hard to see how Jonbon could turn it around. Nicky mentioned after the Tingle Creek, I think it was, how he felt he would have been stepping up in trip. But then he's gone and won twice over 2 miles, so he doesn't feel the need to. But if he thinks he needed to go up and trip, that would suggest he's going to be better over further. But El Fabiolo never looked like he would need to get further. Travels really well. Kept going, everything. Like, he's a very, very smart horse. There was only a neck between them as novice hurdlers, but there's a good bit further between them as novice chasers. I'm not saying there's going to be further again, but I don't see any reason why Jonbon can turn it around unless El Fabiolo's jumping lets him down.
Okay, I've never heard that line of his jumping wasn't just splendid. A long time since I've heard the word splendid be used, Barry. Excellent. Love that. Splendid. It's very British. The competition, guys, is just get involved. Who do you fancy in the head-to-head? Jonbon or El Fabiolo? Comments below in YouTube, please, in the box below. And as per last week, we're reading them all and we're getting involved. And there's a £20 free bet up for grabs. We will pick a winner randomly. Who do you fancy? Jonbon or El Fabiolo in the Clarence House Chase? Fingers crossed it happens. That would be splendid. Tony, what is happening in Ireland this week? What do we have to look forward to? Your Ryanair anti-post selection runs, I believe.
Yeah, nothing quite as splendid in Ireland. More run-of-the-mill stuff with a meeting at Navan. I think there's a good handicap hurdle in Navan on Saturday, and Torres up there, I suppose probably the main national hunt meeting of the year. The horse and jockey chase and the good mares and office chase. Fieldor, who I was chatting about for the Ryanair last week, it seems like he is going to be going for this race now. So they kind of imagine pitched up at Punchestown last week in the Spillane's Tower race, and makes sense to Fieldor is going here. He would want to be going very close here because he's going to get in without a penalty, because still the only race that he has won over fences is the beginner's chase in Navan. But as mentioned last week, I think he's come second to the two best 2-milers in Ireland, El Fabiolo and Dino Blue, in his 2 starts this season. He's looked like he's been wanting to step up to 2.5, I'd say, for a fair while. He's had a couple of goes at the last season when he was out of form, but he looks a much better order this season, and I'm hoping he can go well. Although you never really know what Willie Munn's going to pitch up with in that race.
No, we'll hope that he goes, like you say, pretty close though. Barry, back in England, we also have the Winter Millions at Lingfield. 2 days of jump racing, 1 day of flat racing down at Lingfield. And we might see Protectorat versus Lahon Press, who we haven't seen in a very long time, for the Venetia Williams yard. I think he's been good to go for a little while, but I think they've just been biding their time with kind of where they want to run, ground, etc. I hope he comes back in the same sort of form we saw him in when he was, it's a year and a bit ago now, because he had I felt like he was a horse who had that real bit of class about him, like a proper bit of almost X Factor. Is that fair to say?
Oh, definitely. And his run in the King George until he unseated Charlie Deutsch at the last, he did really well, considering he was jumping to his left, but he was banging contention with Braveman's Game. So no, he definitely is a very smart horse. this is 2 mile 6 around Lingfield and good to soft. Lahan Press is a winner of the Scilly Isles on good to soft over 2.5 mile, so he doesn't lack pace. Whereas the other hand, Protect the Rat was third behind Broadway Boy over 3 mile 2 in Cheltenham on soft ground. So he's relished slow ground. Stamina has always been very much one of his strong points. So for me, I'd imagine Lahan Press would have the edge on pace, even though he hasn't had a recent run. But Venetia's, to be fair to her, when they're, she generally has them fairly ready first time out. And as you say, this fella he's been teed up for a while. He had an entry, I think, into King George as well. So no, I'd say he's pretty good to go. And if he's anywhere near what he was, he should be hard to beat.
Yeah, and you're right. It's only a year since we last saw him. I feel like he's been missing in action for a while. But it'd be great to see him back. Anything else to mention, Barry, in terms of just horses to look forward to this weekend? There's that good Grade 2 Mares Hurdle as well down at Ascot. And there's the Peter Marsh, actually, up at Haydock.
Yeah, Peter Marsh and Haydock. The Royal Pagaille is there. He was second to Braveman's Game in the Betfair, and he would meet potentially Big Genius, who was third in the old Hennessy in Newbury, having been third behind Corrick Rambler and Fast or Slow at the festival in the Ultima. So I think the softer ground is going to suit him. His level of form in a handicap, from me, being third in both of those races versus Royal Pagaille being second to Braveman's Game, who we'd have to have a question mark about him on that performance and on his performance in the King George as well. So Royal Pagaille beat Braveman's Game, should I say. But that'll be an interesting race. But for me, Big Genius and the Mares race in Ascot, it'll be interesting to see how Marie's Rock turns out this time, having been 7 lengths behind Bob Ollinger last time. It'll be interesting how she advertised the form. West Balboa is there and looks likely to be favoured, but West Balboa is rated £7 below her. For me, she'd have to step up what she's done. She has done really well and she's progressive, but I mentioned last time, I do like that Bob Ollinger form in Cheltenham, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Oh yeah, that caused a bit of chat on the old YouTube comments as well, actually, the difference of opinion between yourself and Tony in regards to Bob Ollinger. So will that form get a boost? Time will tell, hopefully this weekend. Keep your fingers crossed for the weather. Tracker time, guys. We've got to wrap this show up. So just your tracker horses, and given the big boost I've given it at the top of this show, the big talk up, you've got a lot to live up to, lads. So more winners, please. Tony, let's start with you. Who is your tracker horse this week?
Okay, I'm going to go with a horse called Cannon. He was third in the 4-year-old bumper at Naas on Friday. Big percentage of these fields in these 4-year-old bumpers can kind of be cast off flat horses that probably have had problems and haven't made the track, and they finished up in jumps, yards and bits and pieces like that. But this lad has a decent National Hunt pedigree. His dam kind of won 4 National Hunt races, and she's a full to 6 shooter who would have been a 147 hurdler, but Noel Mead Jigginstown owned that. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty good run. Steadily run race. 4 of the first 5 were up in the pace the whole way. He was the exception. Came from a bit further back. The front 3 kind of pulled a fairway clear of the 4th. And his jockey just didn't look as polished as either Patrick Mullins or Pa King in the finish. I think a bit stronger hand, he would have finished a bit closer. But in any case, he's going to get into a bumper now in his age group without a penalty, and hopefully he's up to winning one of those. And I'd say a bit of nice ground won't be any problem looking at his pedigree.
Wonderful. Into the tracker he goes. And final line to you, Barry. Who is your tracker horse, please?
A horse called Union Station caught my eye in the maiden hurdle. He was third to Tully Hill on his racecourse debut. He's a half brother to OK Corral, but he just caught my eye. He travelled into the straight. Keith Donoghue chased him along. He didn't have too tough a time as his first run. I'd say there's plenty of improvement expected from him. So, and judging by his pedigree, he might enjoy stepping up in trip as well. So, Union Station from the maiden hurdle for me.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Boys, thank you both as always for your contributions, and listeners, viewers mainly out there, as I've been saying all show, we love to hear from you, so do get involved in the YouTube comments box. And of course there is another free bet up for grabs. Just tell us who you fancy in the Clarence House Chase, El Fabiolo or Jonbon, and a reason why maybe, and we will pick a winner at random on next week's show. But for now, have a very good week. Also get involved with those price boosts if you would like, but it is for a limited time only, and do it responsibly. But thank you as always for tuning in. Join us again when we will be back next week, but for now, have a good week. That was Off the Fence.